Hey folks, welcome to Roll of Law. Today I wanted to share an idea I had with you, and it's something I'm going to start using in my adventures, and I think you might find it useful in yours. So that is the idea of a town card, a little handout that I can give to players when I'm running a game to help them get a feel for where they are. And as a DM, when I'm running, any sort of town or setting or whatever else, I really want the players to connect to it, to feel that they have a connection to the places where their characters are, to start building those emotional links. So I think that this is something that's going to be helpful for that. And so I started using Midjourney, and I'll talk a little bit about why I'm using Midjourney for this a little later. But this is what I generated. And this was the experiment to see, will this work? So what you can see here is I've got a little image of a town. And I generated this with a prompt that was pretty simple. I think it was something along the lines of fantasy town pastel sketch. And so if you've seen those things where people have really complicated, hard to create prompts, I was really trying to avoid that because I don't really understand those things. I don't know how they work. I'm just trying to keep it simple. But what I got here, I think, works pretty well. We've got this sort of little image of a pleasant fantasy town. There's some weirdness to it, but that's okay. It's a fantasy town. So that's our sort of starting place. Now along the top here, I've got those square boxes, and you can use sort of whatever you want. I used square boxes to differentiate it from the circular boxes that I'll talk about in a moment. But these are just some NPCs in the town that might be a place where, PCs can go and people to talk to. So I generated an image of a blacksmith and an image of an alchemist. And the next one along is for a general store merchant. And then I've got an innkeeper and the town mayor. Now, I don't know who these people are yet, but just by looking at these pictures, I'm already starting to get ideas. So Midjourney in that way can also be a touching off point for ideas about that. So that was sort of the beginning of this, is just, here are some characters that you might talk to. Now, along the side there in those circular boxes, I went and sort of put up things that they might want to do or look into. And, so we've got an ogre, we've got a dragon, we've got something going on with the crows, we've got goblins, and we've got a scary cave. And all of those things are things that the players might want to look at. And so, I sort of generate a lot of this in kind of, a pastel kind of, the vibe I'm going for here is kind of low-level town. And, a friendly place before things start to get really serious, because typically in sort of the campaign arc in a Dungeons & Dragons game or similar fantasy game, things start out pretty quiet and get bad over time before the PCs ultimately, hopefully, make things better. But you might be saying, wait, why do you have a dragon for your low-level town? This is actually something I love to do because you can throw in some problems that people can solve right at the beginning. A low-level group can probably go after that ogre and the goblins and, maybe investigate the other things. I don't know how dangerous they are at this point. The dragon is probably too big. And the reason why I like to do that is that it gives people something to think of later. And what you'll find when you do this, when you throw in sort of problems the PCs can't solve yet, is that sometimes when you're short on ideas, the players will actually start coming up with their own thoughts. And so they might later down the road, as their characters have grown and evolved, say, hey, listen, remember that dragon that was, causing problems for that town we started out in like 6 adventures ago? Let's go deal with that. And that's great because now that's that point where you've got that connection where they really want to go back and solve that problem that's been on their mind for however long. So I love doing that, and this is a great opportunity for me to throw that in. Now, the way I'm sort of planning this is to just give them this information, and then they can go and investigate and talk to people and say, hey, what's the deal with the dragon? Now, you might not want to do that. You might want to take a different approach where they have to find out about the dragon first. But if you're doing this with sort of digital files and all of this becomes really easy, you can add the dragon on once they find out about it, or you can put it on before they find out about it, whichever is easier for you. And you can print out copies of this as you need. Now, I left a lot of big blank space on this, and that is because I plan to put in details. So let's have a look at sort of what that might look like. So you can see, once I bring up some text here, we've got the town of Otterferry, and it's the population, their primary economic activity. And as the PCs learn more about the town, I can start plugging more information into there. If they learn the name of the mayor, I might put the name up with that little card. All of these are things that I can do over time. Now you might say, okay, well, are you really getting that much more than just saying, hey, here's what the town is and describing it? Well, I think that this actually does a fair bit to establish a theme, a feeling of this town, because we can look at some alternatives here. If this town, how does it feel compared to this town? This town is a much different place. It's already instantly, you've got a different vibe of this town, right? We're thinking that there's a different kind of adventure that might happen here, a different sort of theme. I'm clearly setting up some horror vibes. I'm setting up some, these kinds of things. So already, just by handing them this card, I've done a lot to establish, here's the kind of adventure we're looking at. Here's the feelings that we're going to have here. And I think that there's a huge value to that. So I'm going to play around with this. I'm going to start using this. I think it's really useful. Now, so far, I've just talked about like D&D or fantasy settings. And, when I say D&D, Worlds Without Number, Pathfinder, all sorts of different options for sort of the same kind of vibe. But that doesn't mean that you're only stuck using this in those kinds of settings. There's all sorts of possibilities for where you might use this. So I also generated this one. And you can see this is for something that is more cyberpunky. This is, probably suitable for, cyberpunk or Shadowrun. Although for Shadowrun, I might want to, make an orc or a troll or something like that because, different sort of game. But now we've got our science fiction kind of cyberpunk edge to this. And once again, we can see that we've got different characters they might want to talk to. Hey, that guy with the cybernetic, arms, what's he about? What sort of things might he be useful for? Meanwhile, I've got some potential antagonists. We've got the guy in the suit, classic villain for, those sorts of things. I've got what might be a rogue AI, a corporate symbol, a biker gang. All of these are possible, sort of antagonists or problems or challenges, or even just things to investigate, right? So I think this has a lot of potential, a lot of ability to really create a particular vibe or motif in the games and give people a real feeling of what, something to explore. As noted, you can add stuff to these. If you're playing at a tabletop, I might go to the effort of taking this to like a print shop and having it made on something like a glossy card where I could just hand it out to people. Or you could just print it on a sheet of paper, and then once it's on a sheet of paper, you can go and, from there you'd be able to write notes on it directly. All of these things, I think have tremendous potential, and I'm really looking forward to trying this out in a game. I recommend that you give it a go as well. Now, I mentioned that I generated these in Midjourney, and I've got a Midjourney subscription. It took me less than an hour to generate these, and that was on slow mode. Now, on fast mode, I can throw one of these together a lot quicker. I use just GIMP, which is a photo editing program. There's better tools for this. Canva would probably work better, or Photoshop, but GIMP is free. So now you might say, why not hire an artist, or pay an artist? And I would love to. The problem is it's just not possible. I can throw this together in an hour. And if there was some sort of database of like fantasy or gaming art, then that would be wonderful. For photos and so forth, I can use a service. I use Envato Elements where I pay them a fee and I have access to stock art. And then I can, that fee goes to the people whose art I use. That would be fantastic. But nothing like that, so far as I can tell, seems to exist for this kind of drawing. So I'd have to instead search a million different places and it's just not possible. So this isn't really a situation where it's where Midjourney is like competing with the artist market. It's creating a possibility to do something you couldn't do otherwise. So I know that this is kind of a controversial area of things, but this is enabling me to do something and add something to my games that would just be completely impossible. So there's just no competing market to it. But as I mentioned, I think this is fantastic. This really creates some tremendous potential. So let me know in the comments what you think, if this is something you plan to try. And yeah, I look forward to giving this a go sometime, hopefully as soon as possible. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you found this to be interesting. I just kind of decided the idea popped in my head and I then played around with it to see if I could make good workable images. And once I could, I was like, I got to share this. I think it'll be potentially useful. So, and if you do try it and you find it's helpful, or ultimately if you find it's not helpful, let me know as well, because feedback on that is fantastic. Anyway, thank you for watching and see you next time.